off again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not.
Good evening, welcome to NUFC Matters. It's Friday night, which means it's the 3 Amigos night. I'm delighted to say I'm joined by Steve, Mitch and Ian Mearns. Keith might be dropping in at some point throughout the show. He's on his way to Newcastle for the Andy Griffin talk-in tonight. But as always, plenty to talk about and all of your regular features. And I wanted to start off, lads, with a bit of home improvement. First person I saw put this out was Martin on Twitter. Left me dad at the RVI for a scan this morning, and so passing time at the ground. Amazing to see hundred of workers giving the whole stadium a paint refurb, new lighting, new roof panels, making it a stadium fit for the supporters after years of neglect. And then subsequently we had a succession of photographs, coming out of the internals in the concourses, in the stands, flags and various things, placed onto the walls. Actually scaffolding in there, so we've actually got men at work, and it's not the Australian group that you're thinking of, but it's great to see just little improvements, big improvements, whatever you want to call them, but little things matter to supporters. And one would hope that in the Platinum Club where I go, that they'll have finally removed, not that I've got anything against Rule Fox, but that picture of Rule Fox in the less than memorable game against Southampton, which is near the bar. No idea why it's in there. Just seems as if it's placed there in this horrendous gold frame that you would have probably got a certificate for after 30 years service and work. But it's just good to see, Steve. The decorators are in, and it's good news for Newcastle fans. We're going to be walking in feeling as if we've got a new stadium when we won't, but it's just a bit of home improvement.
Yeah, absolutely. And RIP the Gallagher pigeon. I've no doubt that's what the scaffolding's there for. They finally caught it and got rid of it. No, seriously though, 14 years. I mean, the budget that Eddie and the team had, Eddie Rutherford at the ground for improvements that was discussed at virtually every fans forum at the start of every season that we held. It was pushing 6 figures, maybe 200 grand, and for that he had to do the entire ground for the season, keep it maintained, keep it going, keep it ticking over, and that included completely fitting out of a sensory room, I think that they placed in the ground for some of the disabled supporters. Alterations were made for disabled supporters with non-slip flooring and this type of thing, and where they were exposed. And you look back and you think, you know what, it should have been that a fortnight, not that after every season, and then it's spreading into 14 years, as you say, of neglect. It has to be done. Had to be done. Glad it's being done. We've always said that the size of the concourses in the Gallagher were rife for decoration, even if it just meant changing the size of the TV, for God's sake. They've gone from the 24 or 21-inch TV, hopefully something slightly bigger that some of us older members can actually view and see from a distance. But, it was... Let's just say that what happened at St James's Park was symptomatic of the Ashley era, and we're seeing a massive clear out. The signs have gone. There's improvements being made inside, and we'll all get to see them when we turn up on the first game of the season against Nottingham Forest.
Yeah, Mitch, you got to the point, I guess, where we probably would have all gone up with a paintbrush ourselves and volunteered if Ashley'd still been here. But the new owners, again, keeping their promises and doing things and doing them quickly.
We don't need to take any pages out of the Mackin playbook for things like that. Thank you very much, because we've actually got owners who give a shit now. It's as simple as that. How the ground looks and how the ground is treated is reflective of how much you care. This is our home, and you should be proud of your home. And I think it is, Steve hit the nail on the head. It's reflective and symptomatic of the Ashley era that the ground was left to rot, Gallagher pigeon, plastic bags and trees. It needed more than just a lick of paint. It looks like it's getting more than just a lick of paint, which is very, very good. And I think this is the what's being now reflected by having owners who care. It's just as simple as that. And it's not rocket science. You know, we talked long ago about easy wins, things that new owners can come on with and get curry favour and extend that little bit of goodwill and honeymoon period that little bit further. And it isn't rocket science. Get it right, get the simple things right, and the rest looks after itself almost. It isn't a hard sell to the supporters in Newcastle United who turn up in their thousands week in, week out. But to actually make you feel good about coming to the ground again, that's a big thing. And it matters. It really does matter.
Yeah, it does matter, doesn't it, Ian? I mean, it's long overdue as well.
Well, absolutely. I mean, you know, I sit in the Gallagher end, as you know, and I mean, you know, Steve's quite right about the tellies. I mean, you know, they're basically like about the size of a sort of standard computer monitor these days, you know, and they read up on the walls. So, you know, you're kind of looking at the sort of basic sort of, I don't know, maybe at best a 28-inch telly, you know, and you're like looking at it from about 25 feet away, and it, you know, and they've just been like that forever, you know, and it's just long overdue for them to be updated and enlarged. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, for the literally hundreds of people who are standing watching each telly just to get a glimpse of the highlights. And then, of course, you know, when Ashley was there, they had the monitor with like advertising around it, so like the actual screen that you could actually watch the replay on was even smaller, you know, and it was just a complete a joke, you know. So I mean, that in itself will be a massive improvement from the perspective of more supporters, because one of the problems with the ground is in the configuration that it is you know, they'll probably struggle to find a way of putting large replay screens in, apart from the one that already exists up in the Leazes end, you know.
Yeah, it's just good to see, and you know, the as I say, the tweets going out, and you know, different people popping up to the ground and looking at it is it is great. Steve, I did notice you caused a little bit of controversy on Twitter. It's not like you this week,
right?
With this post.
Yes.
Wow, what a thread this was. 36 years ago tonight, and of course the infamous hand of God, where Maradona, you know, handled the ball and got it over the top of Peter Shilton, and obviously we have no World Cup in its proper time. We're going to have a Winter World Cup this year, which feels very bizarre and has left us all with this yawning gap of football this summer. But that photograph and the subsequent messages, and people need to just take time, just have a look on that on Steve's Twitter account @OldEtonian. It does split opinion, it does split fans, and some people clearly not happy with Peter Shilton still 36 years later. Steve, that's what I got from reading all of that. What was the point I mean, obviously you put that up just to get something obviously triggered the thought or whatever, but I mean, you know, why did you put it up, and what did you make of the reaction?
The reason I put it up was because it reminded me that 36 years ago that night, I was actually on holiday in Rhodes, and we were I was with a group of friends. We were having a great time. We watched it all together in a bar with a bunch of people who were making a film. They were in Rhodes town making this film, and one of the people who was sitting in the bar is now a sir. He was knighted a couple of years ago, and he was just a young lad at the time. And we watched the game, and I mean, the atmosphere in the bar was unbelievable. We watched a couple of games earlier, and of course it was Peter Beardsley, it was Chrissy Waddle, it was all that type of, you know, the conversations. Things hadn't started well, and it was just a reminder, because what had happened was the previous night somebody had reminded me of something that happened 37 years ago, and I went, oh yeah, 37 years ago we were at 35 years ago, sorry, we were at Roker Park watching David Bowie, and then my wife went, well, the following year or the year before, I can't remember the thing, we were in Rhodes, and that's the conversation, and that holiday always triggers that World Cup, and it was something pure as simple as that. And I found the photograph, and it's a photograph that will ever be embedded in most people's psyche, I think. And whether Peter should have got it, whether he came off the line too quick, whether you could blame him, whether you could blame the fact that you know, the whole way that the game went, the exhaustion, the heat. There's a number of things. I would never blame Peter Shilton for, you know, because in that photograph he looks like he could barely jump. But the fact that he's up against Maradona, and Peter was not one of those goalkeepers that would clean anyone out either, was he? You know, he wasn't that sort of physical specimen. He was very much a technical goalkeeper in my eyes. So I didn't think he would come out and clatter him and risk being sent off. But that seemed to be a lot of the conversation. A lot of people said, should have come in, should have clattered him, didn't jump high enough, blah, blah, blah. But it was just a very, very, simple, innocent thread or posting, rather, that was just to remind us of a holiday in Rhodes Town, you know?
Yeah, I mean, Mitch, hero or villain, I guess, is the question I'm going to ask you about Maradona. I mean, so blind to the ridiculous, really. For me, he's a cheat. He'll always be a cheat for what he did. That really hurt me, that particular goal as a young man who was watching England and had hopes of Peter Beardsley and co, getting to a final that year, and were robbed by somebody cheating. First time I'd ever seen it firsthand. But the second goal, wow. I mean, it was, the reason that Maradona is known as one of the greatest footballers in our generation, Mitch.
Known as one of the greatest footballers in my generation, but for other reasons that you just covered, and more besides, would never make my best ever World 11. Yeah. Because I just can't bring myself to put him into that team because of the things that go with him. Cheating, and how his career ended, and the problems he was obviously struggling with as his career ended. No doubt the talent. I've seen him in the flesh at Barcelona on one of our trips there to catch the pre-season when he was at Barcelona with my dad. Scintillating to watch live. Around that era, there was very few other players could touch him. But that handball and the subsequent lack of any sort of contrition about it, for me, forever sullied his career. But maybe that's just because we were on the losing end of it, and I'm a little bit but there's no doubt the man, as a pure football talent, was a genius. And also you have to take into account the era he played in was still occasionally horrible pitches, and very much having to deal with defenders like the Butcher of Bilbao, who used to get away with taking you out with the knees quite obviously in front of referees, and he could still do what he could do, sometimes hobbling around the pitch on one good leg, and I think that when you're comparing footballers across eras always has to be taken into account. That, the rules were interpreted differently, the playing conditions were often very different, and the equipment was different, and you do wonder what somebody like him could do in the modern game, where there is a lot less physicality in some respects, and referees will protect skilled players more, and the pitches tend to be better, and the grounds tend to be better. It does make you wonder what levels somebody with his talent could achieve right now. But that talent means nothing to me without sporting integrity.
Yeah,
at the end of the day.
Yeah, 100%. Ian, it was, it's almost as if it was yesterday when Steve put that photograph up, and it does bring back all kinds of memories. But Shilton was getting a fair bit of stick in those comments from people because they say, "What's his foot doing on the ground?" And he just didn't predict what was going to happen, did he?
Well, the thing is, I think he jumped anticipating somebody trying to head the ball as opposed to putting a hand in the end and tipping it over him. And the thing is, the criticism I would have had of Shilton is come and get the ball, and it doesn't matter how high you think the other bloke's going to jump. You jump as high as you can in order to retrieve it. So that would be my criticism, because I mean that photograph clearly shows that Shilton hardly had his feet off the ground, and Maradona, who was about 5'4" or something, was like sort of 3 foot off the ground, you know. So that's the difference. I mean, it wasn't as though Shilton wasn't an unathletic, was an unathletic goalkeeper. He was a very, very sound goalkeeper most of the time, you know, renowned for his positional play, very good on distribution, you know. But there you go. It's a long time ago. I'm surprised that you, Steve, by the way, got to see the Glass Spider tour at Sunderland, by the way.
Nah. I've seen him that many times before, and we went thinking, yeah, this will be another good one. And I just remember my pal Mick, we got into Roker Park, and the first thing he did was start wandering around on the pitch, and it was all covered by a tarpaulin, and he wandered around in a circle for ages and ages. And eventually, he just stood in the middle, and he pulled the tarpaulin back and screamed, I've found it, and then proceeded to have a piss. He'd found the centre circle.
God. Top Bobby says Diego is the greatest player on the planet. The referee should have spotted the handball. Daz, look at Shilton against the Germans in Italia 90. How slow does he move his feet? And that goal of Maradona definitely fooled the ref, but you can't blame him for rubbing it in. It was revenge for the Falklands War in the Argentinians' eyes, says Alan. So, it was that political connotation as well. Okay, let's talk season tickets, Steve. Something we've looked at on the show over the last few weeks, anticipating it. I did get a text off Ian earlier in the week about what he'd heard was potentially what the club was going to do. But look, it doesn't matter what they were going to do. They were always going to get criticised by one quarter or another. Do you think they found a satisfactory solution, Steve, or do you think they could have done something better?
I think they found a solution, because I think none of the solutions would have been satisfactory, to be perfectly honest. Whether they'd gone for 10,000, whether of those 10,000, all 10,000 were people who had previously had a season ticket, whether they'd dispensed with all the members, whether they'd cleaned the whole thing out and started again. No matter what they'd done, they were going to be on a high to nothing. And I think what they've decided to do is, basically, I think from what I can gather, there's going to be 1,000 season tickets made available. And then after that, anything else that's spare will be on a match-to-match basis. And it'll go on not a point system, but basically, you know, keeping your eye on the internet and hoping that you can lucky and get a match ticket as either a member or whatever other scheme they happen to bring in. What I would say is that it was always going to be contentious, always. There were so many people now wanting to get in, and if it's done anything, it's strengthened the very fact that within the boardroom they'll realise that they really do have to look quickly at anything that they can do to extend the attendance that's in James's Park with more seats, whether it's in the Gallagher end or whether it's do something very clever with the East Stand or whatever it happens to be. But, you know, the demand is there. The fact that there was, 36,000 people in a queue at one point. And I think what's very interesting was the fact that most of those 36,000 people in the queue were actually in a queue that never moved, and then they got bombed out. And that backs up everything that Mitch said last week when they said whatever they're going to have to do, they're going to have to make sure they've got a robust IT system and a robust ticketing system to be able to handle it. And it looks like they've still got the Mike Ashley system in place.
Yeah, it's something which needs to be addressed and addressed quickly, I think. Mitch, your thoughts on the announcement that the club made?
Yeah, I agree with Steve, really. At the end of the day, whatever they would do, they were going to get damned from somebody for it. They've gone with what they feel is the best solution in their opinion. And somebody's had to make that decision, and I don't envy it at all. But that's what they're in place to do. That's why you get big bucks. You got to have to make the difficult decisions. The IT situation was worryingly predictable. How the heck we can't have? There must be somebody with experience of IT and ticketing systems and things like that who would go to the club and say, here's a plug and play solution for you, and I'll help you, as I'm a fan, and I'm not going to charge you full whack. I'll do you a great deal on it. Just get my name out there and get it branded and let me solve all your problems. Because there has to be a better way than what that is. I cannot tell you how many screenshots I got off of friends on WhatsApp. Just what Steve did, and Andy out here did, and a couple of others, back home, with where they were in the queue, followed swiftly by that had been kicked out, basically. I hate being the prophet of doom, but it was just screamed, can this website handle it? And we knew what was coming. So that is something that really needs urgently looked at, going into the next season, because what they will be relying on is a robust web-based system of sales. Because they've not sold all the season tickets, they want to keep seats available match to match, and therefore they do need a system in place that can cope with the demand. And it's, I know people who've gone to the lengths of going out of their way to get their hands on a season ticket already at a premium price in a premium part of the ground, just so they're going to secure a ticket for the once, twice, or if they're lucky, 3 times they're back in the UK a year. That's what the expat community are doing with it at the minute. Paying top dollar just to guarantee to see 1 or 2 seats, 1 or 2 tickets. You know what I mean? And all right, Stu, calm your chickens, man. I left him and Big Andy in the pub last night singing Oasis songs. The absolute state of the pair of them, I have to say. I'm not telling tales out of school around like that. Yeah, me.
The IT system that you're talking about. I get the impression that it's because it was actually it was built on some sort of like friends and family scheme. Where remember BT, they used to give you like weekends where you could have 59 minutes to talk, and then it would cut you off. I get the impression that it's on that sort of tariff, because my mother used to have one, and she would ring and then she would go, "Oh, I'll ring you back. It's 59 minutes. I'll ring you back, because if it gets on to 60, she'll sort of get charged." So then it would click on, then she'd ring you back for a chief call again. It's a bit like that. You get the impression that that's what Ashley's built it upon. And
I think it was made by David, age 11, as part of an IT project.
Yeah. But there's 19 other clubs in the Premier League. Surely one of them has a decent ticketing system that they could at least go along and look at and gain some information about it to work out what they could do. Thank God we're not in Europe. Christ almighty. Imagine the uproar if we're in Europe as well, and we had to come back getting tickets for various parts of the ground in foreign countries. Dear me. Be a nightmare.
Ian, I mean, you give us that little tip off at the start of the week. Look, it was never going to please everybody. They've just settled, as Steve says, really just for a decision that suits them. It's the lesser of 2 evils. If they'd gone in and said to everybody, right, we're changing the whole lot, it would have been a nightmare.
Well, the thing is, I think the club was in an invidious position where it couldn't please everybody. It was just one of those things. You see, unfortunately, for the people that boycotted and surrendered their season tickets, under the Ashley regime, they continued to sell some season tickets. And because of the Premier League rule about having 5% of tickets available on a match-by-match basis, and of course having a percentage available for away fans, that means there wasn't actually enough season tickets left to actually fulfill every season ticket holder who'd surrendered that ticket anyway. For the boycott, there wasn't enough left. So therefore, from that perspective, it seems as though with a huge amount of people on a waiting list, or who would expressed an interest, there was just, you kind of fit like a gallon into a pint pot. And I'm afraid in this situation, St. James's Park is the pint pot. There's just massive demand which exceeds supply. So it seems that they've come up with a partial solution, which is release 1,000 season tickets, get them done on a first come, first served basis. And then I would guess it'll be something like 6,000 or 7,000 tickets going on sale on a match by match basis.
Yeah.
So,
I agree.
Yeah. And the thing is, I mean, you know, it seems as though, I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but it seems as though existing season ticket holders account will not give you the option to buy another season ticket, whereas people who've had a membership or have got an account where they've bought individual tickets are eligible from that basis. So that means, you know, people like myself who've got a number of season tickets, you know, it's, you know, I can't get any more, and that's probably right. You know, that's probably right.
Yeah, I think it's the best of a bad job until they can improve the stadium and they can get more bodies in the stadium, and you know, they found a way of doing it, and that's it. You know, it's as simple as that. All right, let's.
Is Keith trying to hide his identity from the Premier League or something at the minute?
There's something going on here. Like,
is there something going on?
There he is. As we can see, he's at the Sandman Hotel. He's got St James's Park in his background. Keith, welcome. You okay, mate?
Hi, great to see you all.
Good to see you. Just talking about tickets, mate. What did you think of the announcement by the club this week on season tickets? Obviously, we were waiting for it. We predicted, you know, what we thought was going to happen. But is that the only way they could have really solved the problem for now?
I think it's a no-win. I mean, if you give loyalty to people who's, you know, suppose you said every season ticket holder gets another one, that would be enough. And then after that, you talk about. The demand is going to, as I think Ian's just touched on, is going to way exceed the supply. So what do you do? And they did something clever. They saying it's got to be somebody that's in touch with the club and has bought the last 6 months. So it's like sifting through to make sure it's not just people like touts coming in and, you know, sticking names down. So it's a very difficult thing to do. What surprised me was the amount. I was really surprised that there's only 1,000 tickets announced. Because to my reckoning, I think that the most season tickets Ashley had before he gave out, you know, the surplus tickets would be somewhere in the region of 22,000. Somebody said it's as high as 28, but let's argue. Let's suppose it's the middle of that, 25. You know, and then let's suppose you've got to keep 8 back. It's still saying, you know, I think there's still 16,000 season tickets kicking about. Whether or not it's just to do an exercise to try to see how it goes, I'm not sure, but it would be better. If people knew it would quell the panic if people knew there was more coming on the later date.
Yeah, no, definitely would. Yeah, it's interesting. Lots of comments coming in about that. Transfer window, as we know, is open, and there was a few funny tweets going about as our latest signing was putting pen to paper. We had white smoke coming out of the strawberry corner. We had Paul's putting, when we announced the signing of Pope at Newcastle, and more relevance to the smoke coming out. We had somebody reminded me of my wonderful time in a cassock outside St James's Park. Steve Wraith waiting and announced outside to welcome the Pope, and we had an outing for the Pope mobile as well. Just seeing this go through 4 lane ends traffic lights towards the NUFC training ground. Wonder what that's all about. Well, what was it all about? It was about our new player coming in, Steve. Nick Pope, of course, goalkeeper, somebody to give Dubravka a little bit of competition. Somebody's already pointed it out in the chat tonight, who spoke to Kieran Trippier before he decided to sign for Newcastle United, which is something we predicted on this show on more than one occasion, that Kieran Trippier wouldn't also be a great player. He would also be a captain of the team, which we've already seen he can be and probably will be when the new season comes around. But also somebody very valuable in speaking to other players and being able to convince them to come. But yeah, great signing, and £10 million. It's a snip, Steve.
Exactly. A squad member and an ambassador of the club. He's doing all sorts of jobs now, isn't he?
Yeah,
absolutely brilliant. But that's what it's about, isn't it? And it just shows you that, you know, the sea change that there is at Newcastle. I mean, we've heard of other players who have, you know, always spoken highly of the club to potential new signings. But, you know, in Pope, what we've got a guy who, let's face it, he was England's number 2, probably pushing for England's number 1 before Euro 2020. Last season, got a nasty injury, and dropped out the squad, and, you know, unfortunately hasn't made it back in yet. But I think starting next season, he's going to be looking to be pushing for one of those 3 goalkeeping positions in Southgate's squad for Qatar 21, so 22 rather. So it's I think it's a great signing, a really, really good signing. I think it's an interesting signing. It reminds me a bit of the Dan Burns signing. You know, they've gone for a 30-year-old, someone who started his career in the lower leagues. You know, he came from Ipswich, was pushed out as a 16-year-old, and then he's been a bit of a journeyman. He went through loan spells and a lot of places, and finally broke into the signing for Burnley around about 2016, I believe. Didn't play that season when he was first signed. There was injuries. Then I think they signed Hart. He came from Man City, and obviously he had been former England goalkeeper, so he was keeping him out. But he sealed his place the following season, and I think, you know, good luck to the lad. He did really, really well, and I think on the stats alone, he's probably up there with Alisson as one of the top shot stoppers. Commands his area. Seems like a well-grounded lad, and probably fits in as what we've heard in recent times as the sort of player that Eddie Howe's looking for. I looked at some of his stats for England. Actually, I think he's only conceded one goal when he's played for England in 9 appearances, which I found amazing. And that was just before his injury when we played Poland in the World Cup qualifier. And then obviously the injury that he had that kept him out. And I think also what was interesting with that, it wasn't a severe knee injury that he had. It was a minor injury. But we've heard many, many times of players that have gone with England to competitions carrying an injury because they didn't want to be the one who missed out on the squad. And yet he listened to the physios and the medical team, and they said, look, you need a minor operation on your knee. It's going to cost you a place, but, you know, from a club perspective, that's what you need. And hey, that shows the sort of professionalism that he obviously has, and a strong mentality, because he wasn't worried about missing out on the England. I'm sure he was disappointed, but it shows you that he's strong of character, strong of will. And as I say, he's going to be great competition for Dubravka. If it is Dubravka that he's competing against, it could well be Darlow, and Dubravka could be on his way. I'm not saying I know anything, by the way. That was just me completely speculating something, just throwing something out there. But what I'm getting at is that he's come in, they've spent £10 million on him. He'll not be expecting to be sitting on the bench wearing the number 13 shirt or whatever it is. He'll be wanting to be playing because he's got ambitions to be playing and representing his country at the World Cup. So you'll be expecting to be number one. So I think if it is Dubravka, he's got a job on his hands.
Okay, that's interesting. I'm going to ask you all about that after I've heard your views on the signing, who you think should be the number one. I'll stick a poll up on YouTube as well on the community section. I'm going to do that now, so have a look on there and join the debate on there. Mitch, your views on Pope coming in?
Very impressed with his interview with NUFC TV. Came across really, really well. And sound, like Steve says, the kind of character that introduced into the dressing room, I think, the kind of personality that Eddie Howe likes and he wants around the club. I think listening to that interview and seeing a couple of the quotes in the media this week, I think that's our number one keeper starting next year. I think he's coming in as number one. Just has a feel that this is the sea change in terms of how wants to let our playing style evolve. I think it's also, again, fantastic work by Trippier to get out there and have a chat and sell the club. And it's amazing how many players, once they come to Newcastle, it gets under their skin. And that forever black and white. And Trippier's going to be one of them, I think, at the end of the day. But in terms of Pope, I think I was a little nonplussed about it initially, but I've never really sat down and looked at the statistical value he has had over the last couple of years. And as I say, very impressed with the interview he gave. It's worth hunting out and having a watch, I think. And I do think he's coming in as number one.
Okay, do you agree, Ian? Is he coming in as number one, or do you think there's going to be a battle for that starting 11 for the two goalkeepers come the first game of the season?
Well, I think what I do know is that the two best goalkeepers at the club now are Dubravka and Pope. That's categorical, and you know, and it's Darlow that'll be going surplus to requirements, I would have thought. But I think from my perspective, I'm just delighted that we've got two top quality goalkeepers. That's something we've lacked, I think, is one of the most important. And I think if you look at some of the coverage that you know, Burnley in the last season, some of his performances were absolutely outstanding. I mean, I think probably the very fact that Burnley weren't relegated before they played Newcastle on the last game of the season was probably down to him. You know, the fact that they hadn't, you know, had so many maulings because he had some outstanding games, and therefore I just think it's a very, very positive signing. I understand his agent was touting him around and even trying to go to a club in Glasgow, but that would never have been a fit, you know, being signed by the Blue Club in Glasgow. Like I can't think why, but there we go.
Yeah, Keith, I mean, it's another one through the door. You know, the back four looks really solid now with backup in the goalkeeper department, and you know, a good solid back four. Potentially another defender coming in if we can, you know, finally get Botman over the line. But yeah, it's good. I mean, I think we knew a goalkeeper was coming. Dean Henderson linked, of course. He's joined Nottingham Forest today. But Pope is a good solid signing, Keith.
I think it's a great addition. I think the money's great. I mean, you're hearing 40 million in January. And still rumours it's going to be 20 millions and that. And the story that this week it's 10, which for 10 million, I mean, what do you get in this day and age? And then I heard a rumour that we were selling the young kid to Preston, Woodman, for 8.2 million. So I don't know whether that's true or false. But if we've got it for Woodman, who had a chance to prove himself, and it was thrust upon him because of circumstances, but I like the lad, but you can't make any better of it. You know, he struggled, and none of us, if we were being genuine, had confidence in him being able to deliver. He just wasn't ready. And then people said, "Well, is he a kid? Is Woodman a kid? Because he's not a bear no more. He's not as though he's 16 or 17. No. You know what I mean? He's in his 20s, and he should have been able to do it." So I think we needed to change things. I have a difference of opinion on. I think Pope will finish the season, but I don't think he'll start it. I think that, and shoot us down, but if Eddie Howe gets the man management right, for me, our current keeper kept us up last year, and when he came back, I thought he was outstanding, and I thought the difference between him and what we had was massive. And when he was injured and he wasn't well, I was concerned. So to me, I would always like to acknowledge that he's done nothing wrong other than perform well in front of a really shoddy defence for a few years. When the defence got better, I think he was very strong. And it's a position I've never worried. I never ever worried about goalkeeper. You know, never when Dubravka's in, I don't worry about it. For that reason, I think he should start. But I think, you know, one slip up, one bad performance, one 4-0 beaten, I think Pope will get in, and then I think then it'll be a free for all. And I think it's great because I think the two of them, you know, I think because they're professionals, I think they'll complement each other. I think they'll push each other to better levels. So I'm really made up that we've got somebody, but I'm also delighted that you can get an England number 2. And if England's number 2 is behind, you know, dodgy hands, I mean, he could become England's number 1. And he'd certainly get our support to do that. So I think it's great Newcastle spend that kind of money. And what pleases me is, you know, Matt Target in its sensible money, Pope in its sensible money. And they're the kind of pros, you look at them and think, they'll run through walls for you. They seem like lads that will graft in training, you know what I mean, and enter the dressing room. So whilst it's not happening, whilst TK and, you know, the Botmans and the Diabys aren't coming yet, I think we've made a good start. We've added to the dressing room, and I think we've added to the culture. That's the big thing for me. I think that dressing room will be an amazing place to train and play, and I think it's great. It's just great what's happening in Newcastle.
Yeah, Clint says dropping Dubravka straight away. Changing captain is not Howe's style. Wants to keep the good atmosphere in the squad. Mike says, I loved Dubravka when he first arrived, but I think last season I saw a deterioration, a lot less commanding and confident, claiming crosses, in my opinion. Dan says, watching a bit delayed. No IT system can hack 36,000 people logging at once. The tech just isn't there. There is nothing that they could have done, just in defence of Newcastle's IT department. Jano says, Dubravka's a solid 6 out of 10 on his good days, an 8. Pope is an 8 out of 10 and at his best a 10. Tim Cairns, he says, Pope will have to earn the number 1 shirt, really get Dubravka. And Mozart agrees with Keith. He says, Dubravka is solid, but will be pushed more. Trulls says, you can't be sentimental when we're aiming for the top half of the table, which, again, is very true. And David says, Preston's record transfer fee ever paid is $2 million. Woodman wasn't 8 million. It was his market value on some websites. Okay, interesting stuff. Keep your comments coming in. I have posted the poll on YouTube, and early lead runner as to who will start as number 1 next season is Pope. 86% of you so far. So keep on voting. Let's see where we're at the end of the show on that one. And as always, we've got plenty to get through. And here's the day I met. The day I met, where we ask you to send in photographs of you meeting players, managers, ex-players, ex-managers, somebody at Newcastle United, and plenty of these in this week. Wiley sends us this one. Olivia Bernard in the Vineyard, Grey Street. He says, I do have one with Lee Clark somewhere. He was visiting family, believe in good old Woodlands Terrace, the Felon, which of course is where I used to live. And he took a photo with us kids from the street back in the 90s. Fantastic. Thanks for that one. This one was from Alan Hill, Vic Keeble and John McNamee. Great photo, that. I think I was at that do, actually. Great night, and it was great to meet some of those wonderful players from yesteryear. Alan Hill senses this one as well. Win the leap, mighty win. Come on without, come on within. Outside Toffs, wearing one of those shirts. And into the modern day now. And this is from Steph. He says, I met Lascelles when I finished my shift on the doors, and he'd been in Bun Bar. I think it's rather worrying that it's daylight when he's coming out of the nightclub there. Let's hope it was a day off from training the next day. But keep them coming in. I do enjoy those. I do enjoy looking at those and seeing those. Are some great photographs, great memories. And we will get you featured on the day I met. Send them to me, send them to Steve, send them to Mitch, send them to Ian, or send them to Keith. Now, we don't often get sent things by people on Twitter or Facebook, some talking points, and sometimes I forget to read them out. Now, I've got this one from last week from Dudar Zippity, and he says, can you guys discuss these new rivalries with West Ham and Villa fans tonight, even just to troll them all more? Is it a coincidence a West Ham medical was twice a no-show as soon as we were mentioned as interested? So, yeah, rivalries, they're a funny thing, Steve. I mean, back in the 90s, our rivalry was with Manchester United. You would never have thought it, but it was because Newcastle were neck and neck for the Premier League for a few seasons and chasing honours. Obviously, didn't get anything, but it was nice to be involved with them. So, this is the new rivalry. Aston Villa, fully understand why. There's been a little bit of niggle between us and Villa since the infamous sub on the Tyne banner. The West Ham one, I'm not so sure. But yeah, rivalry, Steve. Who would you say Newcastle's rivals are at the moment?
It's hard to say, isn't it? I mean, Villa, Villa's the obvious one. I think the West Ham one, it's not a rivalry as such. There was a bit of bother years and years ago, the old petrol bomb incident. A bit
of bother. You're just a petrol bomb incident.
There was recent bother. There was recent bother at a pre-season friendly a few years ago when West Ham fans attacked Newcastle fans when we were playing in a tournament away. So that's a rivalry amongst a minority in our support. I don't see 52,000 people going to St James's Park burning effigies of Ray Stewart, for example. It's not really a rivalry, is it?
Well, it's not. And to be quite frank, I mean, us guys at the food bank and at the fans food bank, we have a great relationship with the lads at Liverpool, at Everton, West Ham, Sheffield United, all the other clubs that are there, Huddersfield, Leeds United, Man City. Man United to a certain extent, although their trust operates slightly differently. We have great affinity and great conversation with those guys, and I think that's held together a lot by the likes of Ian Byrne, the MP down in West Derby in Liverpool area, and Dave Kelly, who were the instigators of the Fan Supporting Food Banks network, and have carried that on, and it's been great. And we chat, and each one works slightly differently, but each one bounces off each other. So in terms of rivalry, I suppose that there is a rivalry there in so much as it's a friendly bit of banter that we have with them when they come up and when we go down there. But I can't say that I've come across. I think there used to be a certain rivalry with Leicester. There used to be a bit of animosity with Leicester fans, and I think that went back to the promotion game. And when we were safe, and then when we hammered them 7-1, I think there was always a little bit of niggle there. And then, of course, in the 90s and 2000s, when we were playing them, and we always seemed to get the better after them after giving them a 2-1 or a 3-1 lead, and then we'll come back and rub their noses in it, and Shearer would score 3, and would win 4-3 in the end, and that type of thing. But no, I think those days of there's one club in the league that you absolutely despise, and they despise you, and it's not just a one-off; it's right across the fan base. I can't really think of anything other than that what's gone on with Aston Villa over the last couple of seasons since the sub on the Tyninson, to be perfectly honest, Steve.
Yeah, I just, I think it's maybe online. I'm not sure, Mitch, whether this is all to do with maybe some Newcastle fans, again, on social media. If you're not on there, you'll not have a clue what I'm talking about. But, the fact that Villa probably moved quickly in the transfer window, they seem to have players, committed to going to Villa before we even got out the starting blocks. Maybe that's what he's getting at, Mitch.
Maybe, but I mean, for me, the Villa thing, having been on a minibus on the way out of Birmingham that day, where it felt like so much was premeditated and thought through, even down to the convoluted way out of Birmingham the police made the cavalcade take. So we got more stick on the way back home than was necessary.
Yeah,
it was quite odd, and that'll live long in my memory. And Villa historically was a club I used to respect a lot. Bearing in mind they won the European Cup in the 80s, and they gave a good example of English football in Europe. And I lost all my respect for the club on the basis of that one single day, and I still to this day don't know where it really came from. No. With regards to West Ham, I've always seen that as a friendly rivalry. We are two similar clubs from similar industrial backgrounds, and we're similar fan bases in many, many ways. I mean, I've been down the blind bag over you a couple of times, Steve, and we've always had a good laugh down there. So again, my problem with West Ham is the current dildo brother owners. They're the one who talk a good game and talk way above their station. If you want to talk about people who are overselling that club and what it is the owners of West Ham do that time and time again. Bearing in mind what we were sold for in around about the same time, they were asking for 800 million. And even with a London market, that's just ridiculous. Mm-hmm. Also, the other thing that irks me with them as well is the way they got the ground too. Because there's a lot of clubs could have done with a new ground and having one handed to them on a plate, just because the government screwed an Olympics up and the legacy of the Olympics up. I've never really had that much of a problem with West Ham personally. Villa's the one that took me by surprise that day, and it sticks with us. It sticks with us even now. That day was quite irritating, and I think Stephen's right. We've now developed this thing with Everton at the minute, which is quite, again, historically, going to Everton was always a decent away trip, and now it's not somewhere I personally would look forward to going to. But it's, I think as well, some of it just comes from the fact that people are shit scared of winning. They know what's coming. They know what's coming. We know what's coming. And they're right to be scared.
Ian, it's Sunderland, Middlesbrough. That's our rivals. We haven't seen much of them in recent seasons because we've been in different divisions. But that's a rivalry, isn't it? So do you understand where this person's coming from on Twitter?
Who? Sunderland. I'm sorry. Like, I mean, obviously in my role, I actually have to mix with people occasionally who are Sunderland fans. And to be honest, they get sick of me because I just say, well, what are you talking to me about football for? You're irrelevant, I had 2 or 3 of them, because there's a few MPs who are Sunderland fans, believe it or not. And I says, oh, well, congratulations on your promotion. You're back where you belong in the championship. So I think, look, we'll be rivals with Sunderland and with Middlesbrough when they gain the right to be our rivals, but they're not at the moment. That's historical stuff. And they are local, but they're not our rivals at the moment, Steve. They are, from my perspective, from a footballing perspective, really, something of an anachronism. I mean, I remember interesting little sort of rivalries which were sort of tinted with sort of hard feelings going back to the 70s. Like Birmingham City was a club that you used to have a little bit of rankle with. I think it was to do with a broken leg and Jimmy Smith, I think, So that was one that went on for a few years during the 70s and probably into the early 80s. I mean, I still, like some of the people in the chat box, I still really, really cannot find it within me to like anything about Manchester United. And I just can't help that, and I would say it, in fact, from my perspective, and I've said this before, I probably dislike them more than I dislike Sunderland, and that's saying something.
Wow. So are West Ham and Aston Villa rivals?
I mean, they're rivals from the perspective of, they aspire to be aspiring clubs. Now let's see how this season plays out, but I mean, I think. I wouldn't say that the minor incident with the inflammatory device in the corner of the Leazes end, how long ago? 40 years ago, probably. That's historical. But I mean, I would guess the vast majority of West Ham fans don't remember that, and the vast majority of Newcastle fans don't remember that either.
Keith, rivalries, Newcastle United, is West Ham and Villa rivals?
I mean, you mentioned a few teams there, and there's one none of you have mentioned, which I want to mention. But I think our rivals were Middlesbrough and Sunderland. I think Middlesbrough is struggling. I think they're struggling now, and I hope they do have a good run this year. Sunderland retired from being our rival about 5 years ago, but they just retired. They don't exist as a rival. The ground's falling apart. Fans are falling apart, and it's just not worth mentioning the same breath as Newcastle, and they know that. So I wouldn't even give them that credibility of saying they're rival. I think they lost that right years and years ago. Man United, a yesteryear's team, and I think they come to terms with dropping out of being a big team. I mean, if you talk to some real Man United fans that do go home the way, they tell you that they are 10 years behind Man City now. And reluctantly, they admit that they're well behind Liverpool. So I don't think Man United's up there now, and it depends who he buys now, as whether they just drift and become a 5th, 6th, 7th top side. But the rumours are it's up for sale. When you talk about rivals, I think rivalry came from Aston Villa, and I think it was opportunistic. I think what they saw was the team struggling, Alan Shearer dropping in. And they just put a banner up there and spelt a jealousy and a hatred towards Newcastle. So I think when they make errors in the purchase of the players, I think we'll jump on it. We've not forgot what they did when we went down. When you talk about West Ham, I totally discount that. I mean, they're my favourite London team. And I think their fans, as Mitch rightly pointed out, are just like us. You know, they're so similar in us that they've always had a tapping team. They've always had passionate fans, so all the London people, if I was going to go to a game or if I was going to go and watch one of their own games, I have done it'd be West Ham. They're the team I like most in London. But getting the rivals, you're talking about, people do jump on things like Aston Villa did, and Everton's just done it. Everton started panicking because they thought we were challenging them for one of those bottom 3 spots. So they put the boot in the roast. And what they've done is vicious, but Everton are the league's delusionaries. They are the bottom 8 side. That's what Everton are now. And they think they are just outside the Big Six. So they are delusionary. They've lost the plot. And I dislike them immensely for the way they go on. But the team that I dislike the most, the Premier League, by far, is Tottenham. They're the people that tried hardest to stop our takeover going through. It's Daniel Levy led, and they've taken good players off us. I don't forget the Waddles and the Gascoignes and the Ginolas. But as a club, I just think they hate Newcastle much more deeper than you realise. And I think what they were doing to try and stop us get this takeover was illegal and vicious. So if you say to me, if you said to me one team you could drop and get out the Big Six, because if they go on the Big Six and don't get the revenues of Champions League and the big TV right money, they bust. So that's where my head. Everton, I'd like to see them go down, but that's they're just idiots, really.
Do you think, lads, that the Villa rivalry, if we're going to call it anything, has something to do with the fact that we went down, and then they went down, and then they didn't come back up in the manner that we did? And I think from that moment onwards, there was a jealousy. There was something about them that they felt as though, because we rubbed their nose in it when they went down, and then they didn't come back in. And I think that now they're sitting there and they've got this delusion that they've got Steven Gerrard and they're going to be the finest team since sliced bread and the biggest club in the Midlands and all that rubbish. And yet you just look at the way that the season filtered out last season. And I think that's where there's an element of when a big club, and I'll use us as an analogy and Villa, when you go down and then you're challenging each other in the championship and one of you doesn't make it, it gives the other one who is successful that opportunity to just do that little bit of rub or just remind them that, you laughed at us when we went down, now we laugh at you because you're staying down. And I think that's where the Villa one has just perpetuated. And I agree with you what you're saying about Everton in so much as some of their fan base. I think it comes from the very fact that they were in complete panic mode for the last 3 months of the season, thinking that they were going down, and with the debt that they were sitting with, there was every chance that they wouldn't be able to spend a bean if they did go down because of the rules in the AFL. And I think that there was like a jealousy. Now that they survived, they think, well, and there's this delusion that they're just going to be able to spend money again, hand over fist, as they always have done. And waste it, obviously. But it's not going to be like that. And I think there's a massive shock wave coming their way next season when they realise that there's very little they can do financially. That's if the FA and the Premier League and the rest of the authorities have the balls to do something about it. I suspect they won't mind.
I think you're right. I think your points are dead good, Stephen. And I think it's funny because you go on rivalry, we think of fans, like which was Steve Wraith into that, we think of Middlesbrough and Sunderland and think of Rangers. But I suppose listening to you all, when you put it together, I guess our real rivals next year is teams we could possibly beat. And I think our rivals next year is going to be Arsenal, Man United, possibly Spurs and Chelsea. You know what I mean? And that might be aiming too high, but I would say the tail end is the Big Six. I don't think Liverpool and Man City are our rivals as such next year. Because it's going to take us, more than a couple of years to catch them. But I genuinely think we could have a pop at the likes of Man United and Arsenal.
Yeah, and Wolves and Aston Villa and West Ham, you would imagine, will be in the mix as well. Okay, 5 o'clock, first hour done. I'm just going to bring in somebody for 5 minutes, and it's somebody who give us a shout on Facebook, Chris here, who was, believe it or not, on the 11th of July, attempting to play 100 holes of golf in a single day. And it's basically a fantastic charity attempt. I'm going to bring Chris in now and he can explain a little bit more about it. Chris, good evening.
How are you doing? You all right?
Very good, mate. Very good.
Good.
I think a few of the lads have had a knock in the past, but I don't think any of us would be keen to be playing 100 holes in a day, mate. But tell us a little bit about why you're doing it, and I'll stick the link in the chat for people to give you some support.
It's a bit like you, Steve. My wife lost her mum earlier in the year. She had a form of blood cancer. It had been diagnosed as sepsis before that, and by the time they found out that it was cancer, she was too frail to be treated or anything could be done about it. So I was planning to do it for like last year sometime, but obviously when this happened to my mother-in-law, I found a charity that I'd want to do it for. So I thought I'd do it for cancer research that would research into cancers and probably be easier to find and diagnosing it with sepsis maybe.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, obviously, it was the same cancer, Hodgkinson's lymphoma, which of course my mum had. So you're doing this on Monday, the 11th of July. You're attempting to play 100 holes of golf in a single day. Which course are you doing it at?
I'm doing it at Sea Houses, Northumberland. I just live about 500 yards from the course, so it's like just over 5.5 rounds. I'll be probably teeing off maybe between 4 and 4:30 in the morning, and hopefully done by about 8 or 9 at night.
Fantastic. And are you doing it? Is anybody going to be going along for the duration with you? Have you got a bit of support?
Well, I haven't had any for 4 o'clock in the morning, put it that way. But I'll probably be doing the first 2 or 3 rounds on my own, and then there's a few lads said they'll come round in the afternoon and things. So hopefully, I mean, I'd set a target for £500, but I'm already past that, so I've upped it again. And every target I hit, I'll probably just keep upping it until we can get as much as we can, really. So.
I bet you had plenty of volunteers for the 19th hole, Chris.
I will be plenty in that. They're keeping the bar open late for us, so we'll probably have a good few drinks afterwards.
Do you mean the 101st?
Chris has got a Facebook page. It is up. It's called Chris's Giving Page. It's a fundraiser for Cancer Research UK by Chris here. I've stuck the link in the YouTube chat. I will post it and pin it to the top. £660 now he's raised of £1,000. It's for a great cause, and it's going to be a great challenge. It's an achievable one at that. But please go across onto Facebook if you're on there and give Chris some support. Just click the link in the chat. But Chris, thanks very much for joining us. Best of luck, and maybe pop back on and let us know how you got on, mate.
Well,
go on, Keith.
What's your handicap, Chris?
4.
12.
4.
4. Oh,
yeah. So.
I thought you would say higher.
No, hopefully not be taking that many shots.
You should get maybe people to sponsor you how many birdies you get. You have 4.
Well, that's what I've got the 660 on my page already. I've had a couple of private donations, and I've got 2 lads that are going to give us £1 per par and £5 per birdie on the way on all the holes. So hopefully I'll get as many as I can. But
that's your regular course as well, Chris? Is it?
Yeah, Sea Houses. Yeah, I've been a member there for a couple of years now. So.
Brilliant. I know you like me, you've lost a few when you've fired over those rocks onto that top hole at the far end.
Well, I'd probably raise more money if I got sponsored by the ball I lost. So.
Well, it's a beautiful part of the world. I've had many happy holiday up there, and it's always great for a day out as well. So Sea Houses is a fantastic course. Chris, honestly, best of luck with it. Please come back and give us a shout on Facebook.
Well,
We'll get you back.
I'll be putting updates on that page during the day, seeing how I'm getting on. So if anybody wants to pop in and have a look.
How do you sponsor then, Chris?
It's on the Facebook page that he's putting the link there. So if you click on the link, it'll take you to my Facebook page, and you can donate through there.
There you are. I've pinned it to the top of the chat. Chris, pleasure to speak to you, mate. Best of luck with it. Speak to you when you've done it.
Okay, brilliant. Cheers, mate. Cheers, lads.
Yes, Chris.
Great to have Chris on. Best of luck to him, and I've pinned that at the top of the chat. We've got Ian for another 10 minutes, and somebody did ask Ian, what's for tea?
Do you know what it is? This is most remiss of me. We actually haven't yet decided what we're having for tea yet. So honestly, I'm just having a complete mare. It's a shocker.
Okay, well, it's going to be something spontaneous, which is good.
Why do you have a Dowden dinner?
Sorry?
A Dowden dinner.
A Dowden dinner.
What? Go out.
Wait, the thing is, look at Keith, right? A Dowden dinner. Would you like actually to eat a bowl of wet lettuce?
Hey!
What?
Okay.
I knew I did the fire up, like.
Thanks to our sponsors, Spider Miner, worldwide coverage from Gareth, Nathan, and the lads. The only cryptocurrency miner that can mine 5 different cryptocurrencies at the same time whilst using virtually no energy, and it's VPN protected. Buy yours now at www.miner.spidervpn.org. Thanks to Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website www.skipsandbins.com. Easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks to L&G Family Funeral Directors, 0191 389 7245, and the Garden of Healing Dispensary, CBD Hemp and Cannabinoid Specialists, www.thegohd.com. Thanks to QTech, shop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wolves and Newcastle, and the guys who run our website, NUFCmatters.com. And thanks to Cleakai, meet the new game over screen, drop into a Clearrun device near you, available on Apple Store, Google Play, and clearrun.game. Thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the video side of things. And if you want to subscribe, hit the Newcastle Legends logo in the bottom right-hand corner, and you can subscribe for free. We still do 7 shows a week. Hit the thumb up to like the video, click share to share to your social media, and drop into the comments box to speak to like-minded Newcastle fans. We're available as a podcast on iTunes and Spotify, and the rest goes up 24 hours after the show has been on YouTube. If you want to become a member, you can click join on the YouTube page, or you can spend a little bit more and go to NUFCmatters.com and click membership. You get a cup, a pen, a membership card, and a scarf if you do it that way, and entry into the monthly draw. If you've got a smartphone, put your camera over the QR code. It takes you straight to the membership pack form. We'll also give away free car stickers if you're a subscriber, which costs you nout, apart from an email to john@nufcmatters.com, and he will post you one out. We also support the food bank on this channel. NUFC fans, foodbank.co.uk is the website where we ask you to go to and donate using the Matchday bucket, which is operational all year round. Don't forget, tonight, 7 o'clock, come and meet Keith Patterson at 9 Bar and his lass. It's an evening with Nick Lewis and Andy Griffin as well. Friday the 24th of June is today. The day has arrived. Tickets are £12 on the door, £15 for a VIP. Shearer's Bar, 7 o'clock tonight. Should be a canny night. Looking forward to it. And I know the guys are too. But you can pay on the door. Doors open at 7 o'clock. Don't forget, Shearer Ball raffle is still ongoing. $2.99 a ticket. Limited to 99 tickets. Just go to NUFCmatters.com and you can pick up one today. That is running for the next few weeks. John from QTech gives us a clue each week, and we have a prize at the end of the month. The first clue last week was the 14th of December, 1939. Write your answer down to that. And your second clue, Chesterfield, Newcastle United, and Derby County. Okay, so write the answers down to those two if you think you know it. And we will have another clue next week, and you can add that to your list. Okay, time to lighten the mood. Elliot's joke of the week is: my mum got stopped by the police the other day because she was knitting whilst driving. The policeman said, "Pull over." She replied, "No, a scarf."
Ta-da!
Ian, you like that one?
Great, man. Great.
Yeah. Fantastic. Okay, great stuff, Elliot. Thanks. Keep them coming in. Okay, I'm going to go with this next topic with you first, Ian, because I know you've got to get away. And this was quite simple. It was from Jamie Roberts. It was a post he put up on Twitter. I'm not on board with some Newcastle fans being unhappy targeting players like Pope after relegation. We signed Wilson from Bournemouth. People love him. Milner moved to us after relegation. Joe Cole left West Ham. I get the thoughts, but players can go down and improve us. So this was off the back of Nick Pope signing, Ian, for Newcastle this week. Should we be careful in signing players essentially that have just dropped down into the Championship, or is somebody like Pope an exception?
Well, I mean, the point is it's a team game. Each club has 11 players on the pitch at a time from a squad which may be like 18 or 20 strong, or in some clubs' cases more than that. And you can't blame an individual player for the team being relegated. If there are quality players there for sale because the club wants to balance their own books in preparation for the relegation to the Championship, well, they're on the market, and if they're good enough, we should be in there trying to sign them. I'm not really sure about the logic of that question, to be honest, Steve. To be honest.
Yeah, okay. Steve Hasty, your thoughts on that one? Signing players from teams that are relegated, is it something that you like to see? I mean, if they're good enough, you sign them, don't you? If you can get them for a good price, like we got Pope. Don't forget you're on mute, mate.
Yeah, exactly. If as Ian says, it's a team game, and every team is going to have good players as well as indifferent players. I'll not say bad players, because to be a professional footballer, you've got to be pretty good, because it's quite a ladder, and you're sitting right at the very top of it, as a professional footballer. So I know that we can slag players off from the sidelines and say they're not very good, but they're 10 times better than we are in almost every case. But no, I mean, it makes no difference to me whether you come from, like, you're buying a player who's come from Europe and played for Barcelona or somewhere like that, or if you're buying Pope who's come from Burnley and they've just been relegated. The fact is they want to come to play for Newcastle United. They're going to wear the shirt. They'll wear it with pride. And you judge players on their performances when they're playing for us, not the performances when you're playing for other clubs. That's an important bit for me. Couldn't care less how good or bad they are when they were playing for other clubs. It's the same with players when they leave Newcastle. Very few players who do leave Newcastle seem to go on an upward trajectory. I'm sure that there are plenty of examples of players that have. Gini Wijnaldum for one, but then he goes and leaves after winning the Champions League, and then you watch his trajectory when he's going to one of the top clubs in Europe or another one of the top clubs, and his career absolutely, hits the dust for some reason. Sometimes it can just be personalities with managers or with other members of the squad, or sometimes you just run out of steam. But no, Pope, for me, quite happy that he signed, and the fact that he played for a team that's relegated is neither here nor there.
Yeah, Mitch, I think you would agree as well, wouldn't you? That if they're good enough, they're going to come to Newcastle, and it doesn't matter that they've been relegated. It's a team game; it's not an individual game.
If they're going to improve the squad, there's no problem here. If you've got a talented individual who's better than what we've already got in the squad, don't really mind where he comes from. Howe seems to be targeting not just talent, but mindset and attitude, and how to fit in the dressing room too. And sometimes a season of difficulty will mature a player, and you get a player who comes with a lot more experience. And particularly if it's somebody like Pope, who everybody has proclaimed has actually had a good season in the relegated team. So why the hell not? I don't have such a big problem with it. And particularly if you look at the financial side of it, if you can pick somebody up like that at a bargain price, it's an absolute no-brainer. 10 million for an England international goalkeeper doesn't really sound like much in the modern transfer market. So I don't have a problem with it per se. I mean, yeah, if we went out and signed 11 players from the 3 relegated teams, that's maybe time to worry. Because at times some of those relegated teams look like they could have played 2 games and not scored so many goals. So, I think if we were going to be doing that, that's a bit more of a concern. But if you can cherry pick the talented individuals and get them at a good price and improve your squad in the process, why the hell not? And there's plenty of examples if you wanted to dig through it, like Robertson going to Liverpool from a relegated team, and look how his career trajectory's gone since then. And so there's probably loads of examples if you wanted to dig through it. So it's more about the individual than the team they've been in per se.
Yeah, Ian, I know you've got to get away, so we'll bid you farewell and thank you for coming on, mate. We will hopefully catch up with you next week. I hope you and the missus decide what you're going to have for your tea.
My pleasure. Lovely to see you all. Then take care.
Cheers.
Take care, mate.
We'll see you at the pre-season friendlies.
Yes, well, we'll see you before that, mate, hopefully. Take care, mate. See you soon.
Bye-bye now.
Bye. Great to have you in on. Keith, just your views on what we've just been discussing.
I think the relegation sometimes puts people in the real world and shows them, if you take away now another player that we have mentioned, Townsend, Andrews Townsend didn't become a bad player. He did what he was doing under Rafa. He performed at Crystal Palace and has had another club since. So Wijnaldum, Jesus, he was always going to be a good player, and we couldn't hold on to him. When he went to Liverpool, he proved what a good player he was. Now he's at PSG. I mean, it doesn't get much better for any footballer to go to Liverpool and PSG. Seriously, you can be bitter, you can be rivals, but you can't take it away. That lad's gone to two of the biggest clubs in the world after relegation at Newcastle. But I think when you got relegation clauses written in, you're always going to get people going down that's going to move on to something better, because sometimes clubs go down and one player can't keep them up. But yeah, I don't think it makes a monkey's toss. I think if players are good enough, they'll bounce back from that, and I think they'll show the mettle wherever they go. And then if we get that Sarr from Watford, you know what I mean? I mean, he'll say there's a lifeline. One day Watford go and get relegated, next day Newcastle. It'll be the biggest club in the world. I mean,
so it's not that long ago, Keith, that we were, well, it is long ago, actually. It's probably 50 odd years ago. But I was going to say, it's not that long ago that we were picking up players like Alan Shoulder, from non-league. And look what he did. He ended up saving a season at one point and top goal scorer. So, if players good enough and the players got the aptitude and the attitude to want to do well, then it doesn't matter where you've picked them up from, quite frankly, It's down to the individual player, and it's down to what they've got in them. And if you're bringing a player who's got the heart, then it's the heart to wear that black and white shirt, which is the same heart, the same pride that we would have. Who cares that he was in from a relegated team, a non-league team, or he came from a team that won the league the previous season? It makes no difference, does it?
Yeah, breaking news on Twitter, of course, is that Botman seems to be a step closer. A lot of the Italian networks are seeming to claim that Botman has decided he wants to come to Newcastle. So we will wait and see. It's a developing story coming from all the usual Italian linked Twitter accounts. So we will bide our time and wait and see. But that would be good. And I think Eddie Howe will probably want to get one, if not two, in before they start pre-season on Friday next week. Okay, got plenty to get through. I think we will have a little bit of tweet of the week. And first of all, got to say thank you. This has been circulated a few times. I think this has been updated, but I think we've all seen it now. And absolutely brilliant. Sandancer 87. Is it Martin? I think it is, who kindly done these pictures, and he's really took the time to put these together. So thank you for doing that, mate. It is a pleasure to see them, and thank you very much, mate. You needn't have bothered, but thanks very much. And I'm sure we'll have some lookalikes of that one a little bit later on. But yeah, he's very good, mate. Very good, very talented. I'm sure there's a job for you somewhere, mate, doing this kind of thing. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, that was a good one of Mitch as well. So yeah, Mitch in laughing effect. Well, thank you for that. What's that, mate?
On Martin, he struggled, and only a few weeks ago he said he'd had enough. And
yeah,
we know in the past the trolls have jumped all over him, but the rest of the fans in the fan base can help him because he's clearly got the talent. And last time he put a message on when he reached out, he said that he was short of money. And so I didn't want to mention this, but I think sometimes you have to mention things to get a result. I asked him to do a couple of drawings. He didn't want to meet my partner, Karen. And I had a birthday party. We had a photograph took, and I sent it to him. And he did it. He sketched it and did it as a pencil drawing, which I put in a frame. And then he sent one of me, which is the one you just seen there. And I just said that. I said, I don't want nothing for nothing. I said, you've got to send us. You've got to tell us. Like anybody can ask you. Because I saw people on Twitter saying, "Oh, do us this, do us that." Come on, this lad needs money, and he needs a career, and he needs a living, and he needs worth. And I said to him, I said, look, I don't want you doing for nothing. You've already done one. I want you to pay for that, and I want you to do us one now, and I want you to pay you. And I give him 50 quid a picture. which didn't kill us. You know, sent him 100 quid, sent it electronically, and he was blown away. But there's a lot of people asking him for stuff, but how many people would ask him for stuff if they were 50 quid each? Because they are good. And you know, if you get a picture of your Ben in a frame at home, it costs you 50 quid. You couldn't get somebody down the big market to do that. You couldn't get somebody, you know, in Newcastle to sit and draw you a picture of that. But if we all get together and recognise the lad's got a talent and get in touch with them and say, right, I'm going to send you a photograph, and send him the money, you know, before he does it or when you get it delivered, I think it would help a lot, because I think he has struggled with money, and I think that you know, something's only worth something when it's worth paying for, and I think what he does is worth paying for, and I think it could help a lad who has struggled for a while, and he's a smashing lad, and he's ever so grateful. So come on, let's give him some more drawings to do. Let's get him busy. And let's make a job for him.
Great stuff. Well said, mate. Well said, and well done, Martin. That was why we showed them on here tonight. So good luck with that. I have just posted the link for the fundraiser that we mentioned earlier for Chris, because he said the Facebook link might not be working. So I stuck the fundraising link. It's pinned at the top. So if you want to make a direct donation, you can do just that now. Okay, Louise Fraser sent me this on Instagram. She said, this is my wee grandson with his Newcastle strip on. Well, it's an older one. His dad's a Newcastle fan, and he lived in Newcastle for the first 10 years of his life. And there he is, sporting his Newcastle top. So thank you for sending that in. This is another one on Twitter, 7 months old, and he's already practicing the Alan Shearer. Fantastic. This one from Andy Dobson. He said, I like your 10-point reality check, talking about Stu the other day when he did Geordie's Here, Geordie There. He says, if anyone needs a refresh on where we are and where we came from, this picture does it for me. I'm 100% sure we won't be disappointed when the window closes. And there it is last season with Steve Bruce and business nil. No incomings. So, yeah, you're right. Rocky Toon says 10:15 p.m. 45 years ago, I'd still be out playing with me mates, riding bikes, playing football, or even split the kipper. 2022, I'm posting pictures on Twitter of how light it is. How life changes. Northern Rocks, transfer window, a magical time to be blocked by Guernsey and Ryder. Edwards is irrelevant. One or two others are slightly useful stooges. All said and done, it makes a happier timeline. I had a tuna sandwich for dinner. Not one in the know even had any idea until now. They know now. Pretty straightforward, view of what happens on Twitter during the transfer window. That Wayne Bennett sent us this. He says, "Hi guys, can you please give a shout out to our water dispenser at work who tied the knot at the weekend? Both the mother of the bride and the cake were in tears. Congratulations, guys, really good." Ian Hull sent us this one. He says, "My art teacher said I was terrible at art until my dad came to parents' evening." And remember this one, lads, so true. Kids complaining about Spotify, they don't know the real struggle. Right. All have to get a biro out and try and reel it back, and then put your finger in the tape to try and make sure that it went in the right way. Otherwise, it would be all creased. Oh God!
Do you remember when you had a cassette that went wrong? God Almighty!
Oh, it was a nightmare. It was always the one that you liked the best as well. It was never the charts tape. William King said, "Is this the real reason Steve Hasty is at Royal Ascot, to sell off what's left of his beer?"
Yep.
Didn't go unnoticed you with Ascot, and certainly in the lookalikes. Michael Charter says, had a night in hospital here in Turkey, Steve. Only one place for me, Latoon Hospital.
Class. Hope he's all right.
I hope you're all right, Michael. Heat Save, of course, referring to the pictures that we showed last week on the day I met, just watching Three Amigos, seeing you put the picture of me and Davey Mack on. Love it. I took a fire up to his sons, mate. What a bloke he is. My favourite player from when I first started going. So I thought, well, he's doing something in a house. So there you go. Just explaining what he was doing.
There's a picture of Dave McCreary outside a bar here in Dubai.
Is there?
There's an Irish bar in JVC called McCafferty's. And as you go in the bottom entrance from the basement to get into the lift to go up to the bar, it's on the roof of the mall. There's a picture of Dave McCreary in a black and white shirt outside the lift, pointing the way into the Irish bars. Most random picture ever.
Just bizarrely there. This one was Barry Jones. I hate all these parents bragging how well their kids have done on their sports day. My boy had 3 first places today in his, and you don't hear me going on about it. This one from Liam Kennedy. Again, transfer window. Chill. Stop falling in love with signings that haven't been made yet and then getting mad if it doesn't happen or takes longer than you think it should. It's bloody stupid. Business will get done and NUFC will be stronger for it. Trust the process.
Wise words.
Liam Kennedy, who will be back on the show very soon. Speaking what everybody on this show certainly thinks anyway.
Well, said for months that.
Yeah, country in recession, cost of living crisis, fuel and food costing more than ever, and there's 30,000 Geordies trying to get their hands on 1,000 season tickets. What a fan base we have. Never a truer word spoken. And this one, I picked up on this, Football Daily. I hope there's a few more years left in the locker, said Steve Bruce. Dear God, 45 years in football, cheating 11. Unbelievable. I love this one. You know me and me pictures. Great picture of Gary Speed and Alan Shearer. There was a few of them kicking around this week. I just love that one. 2 great players in black and white in tandem. This one from Zara. She sent a few in this week. Kate Bush is at the top of the charts. Top Gun is #1 movie, and we're in a cold war with Russia. If Bobby Ewan steps out of the shower, I'll know the last 40 years was all a dream. You have to have been a fan of Dallas to remember that. Vocal hero, Nick Pope behind the counter at Greg's or we riot. Hertha Berlin have announced Captain Prince Boateng's contract extension with a video of him making a kebab, because why the hell not? Wow. This one as well was funny. Another one of these text ones. Where are you? I left early. Sorry I couldn't stay longer. What? Where are you going? I'm going home. Are you kidding me? Come back. You're drunk. Don't worry. I called an Uber. Yes, but we drank at your place. Oh, where am I going? Sounds like Stu Penman last night. This one was from Keith. Let's say the sad Mackham's biting on the rod. Sunderland are 14-1 to win the championship next season. For those that don't understand betting, if you put £10 on it 14-1, you lose £10. And this one, I missed out on this one a few weeks back when Johnny Depp was in town. I loved it. Pirates of the Caribbean, because obviously they were both on the Key side, Sam Fender and Johnny Depp. The winner this week is our very own Rachel, who was up here, and it was a pleasure to be out with Rachel and Julie last weekend. I've had a few bevies with a few of the admin. Tom Dixon was out, Roger was out. Great to catch up with everybody. But this wins tweet of the week. 13 years apart, my boy. And there is Rachel's son revisiting St James's Park on a ground tour last week, recreating his own photo. I thought that was fantastic. So great stuff. You've got tweet of the week this week, Rachel. So well done. It was an absolute pleasure to see you guys. Okay, we've got time for a few questions which people put to us. I guess the Ericsson one. We'll try and fly through these a little bit, lads, and get like mixed opinions. Chris Mart says, hi all, given that Ericsson's just turned down Man U, I thought he was going to sign for them by all accounts, but it sounds like he's turned them down. Do you think he'd come to Newcastle? Do you think it would be a good signing? Steve, we'll ask you that one. I
think it'd be a quality signing, a really, real quality signing. It's interesting that he has turned down, if that's truth, Man United. Mitch and Stewie and myself had a conversation earlier in the week talking about this very subject, and I think what struck us, and certainly something that Stu mentioned, and it was good because we hadn't had the show midweek, was the fact that Ericsson wants to play football. He wants to be in a team, not necessarily happen to be challenging for anything, but he wants to be there because he has aspirations to be in Qatar in November, back end of November and December. And if he's just having to play one game, occasionally a second game a week, that probably fits in perfectly with his structure of his fitness, etc., etc. He's not going to be traveling all around Europe in an aeroplane and sitting around for hours and hours. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with him. He had that heart problem, we know, back in the Euros. But what I'm saying is that from a mindset and from a physicality and from everything that brings, I think playing for a club like Newcastle United, who aren't involved in Europe, could be a godsend. It's certainly a godsend for us because he is a quality player. We saw it at the tail end of last season when he played at Brentford. What a good player we always knew he was, but having come back from what happened to him, what a good player he's carried on being. And I think that experience, and I just look back at those 7 years that he had at Tottenham, where he was, outstanding every time, every game. He was one of those. He's not a luxury player by all means. He's one of those players who can put his foot on the ball. He has that vision. He has that ability to thread a pass. He can see the game, and he can read the game probably before the moves are happening. He's just one of those very, very exceptional footballers, and he can take an excellent set piece. We've already got a couple in the squad now who can take set pieces, and I honestly think he would be a great acquisition for Newcastle United.
Nicholas from the Felon, Keith asks, what about Gareth Bale? I'd love him to come from a few seasons. Eriksen and Bale, two names that are still floating around. I think we've talked about this before, but I'd love to see either one of those players come to Newcastle in this transfer window.
I think Bale's a no-brainer because he's got to do well before the World Cup. And if you get him on a pay-as-you-play from now to the end of the season, or even now to the World Cup, he's going to... Imagine the impact he'll put on players like Sean Longstaff and people like Joe Linton. They'll all learn from them kind of players. So Bale, if it's financially sense, think how many shirts he'll sell. It'll self-fund a day like that. But if he comes in now to the World Cup, it's a no-brainer. It brings a level of class. Not seen at our club for years and years and years. Eriksen, oh Christ, I'd like him as much as any other player. And the reason being is he's come through a life-changing challenge and he shows what he's made of. But not just that, he's got a touch. And I'd love to put one over Spurs because I hate Spurs. But Man United want him. And I'd just like Newcastle to be the people that land him. And he's a 10 games out of 10 kind of player. When you go away on a Wednesday night to places like Southampton, he'll perform for you. And he's got a great eye for a ball. He's an athlete, and to survive what that lad said. There's another thing which it's quite mercenary this, but there's a feel good factor. When you look at what he's had and where he's been, for all intents and purposes, we all thought he was dead, and he came back and he achieved huge levels. You know what I mean? Massive levels. And so I'd love to stick two fingers up at Tottenham and Man United. So there you go, boys. We've got our takeover. The big six is probably now just a big three. It's probably just us, Liverpool, and Man United. Man City, going forward. And you can't even get Eriksen because he wanted to come to the bigger clubs. So he's coming to Newcastle. So I'd love him to come, more than you'll imagine. And I think Joe Linton, Bruno, and then playing with him just ahead would just take us to a different league. I really think people like Lingard and that could do us good, but I just think Eriksen just has that. He has that unblemished character, and he's pure quality. There's 2 or 3 years in him, which would be while Newcastle's grown from being a club a club climbing to a club that's got to the top. I think Eriksen would be key for that.
Okay, Mitch, we'll come to you for this one. Any info that you can share as to why the club has yet to announce any new commercial sponsorship deals, and how long do you think it will before any are announced? We know now that Fun 88 are going to be on their way after this season. I guess it's not a priority for them. There'll be, like we've discussed on the show before, lots of things tied up, by the previous owner. A bit of a mess left, I guess. But
I think there's a hell of a lot of moving parts. And they're dealing with lots of different things at the minute. I mentioned to you earlier today, and I've had a brief conversation with both Steve and Stu about this today. Somebody close to the club reached out to me about today, and I don't think the timing is coincidental. So hopefully I'm picking up the right end of the stick, and I'm going to pick it up and run with it, because they know that I'm going to be sitting on Amigos tonight and flapping me chops. That there's been even concerns from certain areas about dealing with the movement of players in and out, and dealing with the transport of players. And I sound like a killjoy here, dealing with the plane spotters chasing a story and chasing a plane and looking here and looking there, and that there's been certain concerns from certain areas, some of whom are some of these agents that are having to deal with about confidentiality and privacy. Ironically, some of the same agents who are quite happy to sit in the reception in St James's Park and flap their bloody chops and let everybody know about why they're there. But yet now, whether it's a different type of agent we're dealing with or a different quality of agent we're dealing with, to the point where I believe they've had to have discussions with the airport about improving confidentiality and security, etc., which I find quite amazing in times where, you know, you can track planes like this these days from the transponder sitting in your bedroom. It's an easy thing to do. It's commercially and freely available. So I think, again, it comes back to the whole thing Liam Kennedy was going at. It's just trust the process and let it happen. Don't chase the story per se. I've been, you know, reached out to in a way that I find unusual by somebody who doesn't do it very often, and usually there's an ulterior motive behind it. So I hope I'm reading between the lines right there. It's difficult because everybody has got so much excitement and so much clamour to know what's going on, and that's fine. I love it, but let's just roll with it. Let it happen. Let them come in. Let them bring the players in and let them get them signed. I mean, Bale and Ericsson are two classic examples of two individuals that my understanding of the situation is that there are offers on the table to both of those from Newcastle United, and I think both would be quality signings for different reasons. It would excite me if we signed both. It would excite me greatly to sign both. To bring an X factor that our squad doesn't have at the minute. And if one of the barriers to getting them in is that some bloody agents kicked off about the fact his face has been seen at the airport, you know, that's ridiculous, really. But I guess it is what it is, and I'm damn sure the airport are going to do everything, you know, in their power to look after Newcastle United and vice versa, because that's a relationship that needs to be continued and fostered and made bigger, and I think it will happen over time anyway. My understanding from, you know, the Saudi point of view is want to make the airport a hub of sorts, would be fantastic for the region. And so their relationships we need to keep solid. And I guess it's an interesting insight into the ins and outs of modern football and how, you know, we seem to be dealing with quite precious individuals when it comes to some of the agents making quite unusual demands. And it comes back to some of them reflecting on things like the goldfish bowl effect that Jermaine Jenas used to whinge about. Well, that's part of the price on the ticket when you come to Newcastle United. And that's why players like Malcolm McDonald come to the region, stay in the region, settle in the region, and absolutely fall in love with the club and the region. And that's going to only happen more and more and more. It's up to us as a fan base to make everything we can to make that process smooth, because we are one of the only assets the club has to sell to a player at the minute.
Yep. And
one of those assets is us. Look at these guys, they'll love you forever. If you go and stick a trophy in their cabinet, you will go down in history. And they bloody will. The first captain who lifts a trophy for us going forward is going to go down in history.
Yeah.
Be written in legend. And that's a big selling point for certain players. It would put some players off. And if it puts a player off, we probably don't want them with us. And that's fine. That's absolutely fine. But if you've got somebody making their mouth go and they're making things difficult for people on the basis of the fact that they're uncomfortable about being tracked on a bloody transponder on a publicly available website, it's frustrating. It's super frustrating. And maybe we'll all just have to chill a bit and, like Liam says, trust the process. Let's let it happen and let's enjoy it.
Yeah, and we know fine well that 99% of the stories that make the press, they don't come from the club, they don't come from the player, They come from the agent. People should remember that the agent is there to sell his player. He's there to get the best price and the best deal for his player. That's his job. That's what the agent's all about, and ultimately get something for himself. So when you see a player linked to Newcastle United, and then you see him pulling away, and then you see him coming back in, and then pulling away again, this is a game that the agent's playing with the press, and he's doing it, and he's doing it when there's deniable culpability, is the phrase that they would use in politics, that moves the process backwards and forwards. And we are victims of that as supporters because we take everything in, and we don't really understand what the right tail and the wrong tail is, the right direction it's heading or the wrong direction, or who's pulling who. But invariably it's the agent who is asking to be pulled because he wants that to go that particular way. And the sooner we realise that it's a great big game, the better. And we're victims of it.
I think this window is so vital because we've proven in the last window that we're not going to have a pants pulled in. The markers we lay down in this window are, it's a very simple one. Yes, we have money. Yes, we will spend money, but do not take the piss. And if we get that message across clearly in this window, as we improve as a club and a squad, it makes future windows easier, because agents coming in thinking they're Billy Big Bollocks, they'll suddenly find they've got a very tough negotiation with Dan Ashworth and people like that behind the scenes now. And these are the markers we need to lay down now. If we lay these markers down right now, the future is going to be glorious.
Yeah. And the same goes for players as well that are currently in the squad and their agents who are playing a game, suddenly realising that they haven't done a very good deal for one of their players, and now they're coming crawling and they're trying to change things. And then you hear the threats of, well, he'll leave, or he's questioning, or he's in that position where he loves being here, but as soon as you hear the but, you know it's the agent playing a game.
It's easy to knock agents. I mean, Steve would know this, but having been an agent himself. An agent gets the best deal for his client, and out of that gets the best deal for himself. But if he's there putting stupid add-ons like you want 6 fresh eggs every Monday, and the firstborn child, and 3 Vestal Virgins every 3rd Wednesday of the month, you know, it then just becomes stupid and silly and nonsensical. And the club are quite within their rights to turn around and say, yeah, get stuff.
I think agents have become too powerful, and I think you know what's happening. I mean, I'm hearing the agents might be losing shortly because Twitter's gone viral. It's gone berserk tonight because they're saying Botman's imminent. They're saying it's going to happen tonight. The other thing that's out there now is Rooney's resigned, so the agents will be placing him. But when you look at like Ekitike and people turn around and say, you know, the agent won't agree the deal, and it's the agent's fees that's holding up. I mean, that's gone to bizarre proportions. We're not talking about whether Newcastle pay a fee to his club or whether the lad wants to come to Newcastle. We're talking about how much the agent gets out the deal. And when that happens, agents have took over. Can you remember in the 80s, 70s and 80s when player power took over and they were going on strike and that? It seems as though we're at a point in football where agents are becoming the niggle. And you know what happens when this goes on? They'll just do without agents. There'll be a central body of agents where everybody goes to, like the transfer market fee, and they'll say, right, everyone goes there, and they'll sit with.
I think one of the moves they have made recently, which puts more pressure on agents, is to include agents' fees in FFP. That loophole gets closed because they've got to be included. So they can't load the transfer preferentially with money going out of the game into an agent or the player directly, because those fees now come towards FFP. And so that actually puts a bit of a stronger hand to the club.
Yeah.
Because they can turn around and say, right, no, I don't want to pay that fee because that's going to mean I can't sign another player, or I can't sign a player of the quality I want less because you're taking $4 million out of our balance. Thank you very much. Getting on it. And so I think that's a good thing. And I think, again, the phrase trust the process was one I sit very well with. We'll let them do their job, get on with it, get the guys in, And I think we're going to be very happy bunnies at the end of this window.
I hope we become like Man City. They've just signed Calvin Phillips. I've seen there online, and you know, they've apparently done a deal for him tonight. And they seem to have beaten the agents in a sense. They might have paid through the nose. Maybe he's there paying a fee that we won't pay. But Man City do seem to have got the right players in, big players, and they seem to have got the right kids in as well. And that's when you look at what Man City, if they put a team of kids out, it's like a World 11. And that's I hope that's the route Newcastle go down of signing kids. But I hope that we do stand up and bloody some noses of some agents, because
I'm sure we will.
Yeah. I hope we do.
I'm sure we will. Okay, got about 15 minutes left, lads. We've got to fit this in. And let's hope the hotel walls are soundproofed for when we get to certain parts of this lookalike section. Keith seems to have fallen off his chair as he prepares for this section. But here we go.
The SWAT team have found him and dragged him off, I think.
Joe Hopp says, I see the reason Kelly McGillis wasn't in Top Gun Maverick now, too busy with the Three Amigos podcast. There is Steve in the... Very good. Very. Yeah, Kevin wasn't the first one to notice this. My appearance in the boxing ring again last weekend, getting absolutely hammered, which was good. Yeah, there's Peter Clennell as well sent it, saying that I was getting well and truly smacked in the boxing ring.
That was a hell of a finish by Chisora. That was. It
was unreal, like, wasn't it? And to be fair, like, as I say, the kid took some damage. Like, he really did take some damage, but it was good. Okay, the next one was this from Tom Dixon, Olivia Giroud, and Errol Flynn.
Yeah, it's a good one. That.
See that.
Yeah.
Which is which? Yeah, very good. Very good. Thanks for that, Tom. This one from Tom as well: Cristiano Ronaldo and Benjamin Bratt.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He's getting smarter, isn't he, Tom, with these little designs? David Beckham and Kurt Cobain. That's the one below. So that must be the one underneath. So who's that then? That's the actor, isn't it, on the right hand side?
That's Seth. Is it Fabregas?
Fabregas, by the looks of things.
And the guy on the right's an actor, isn't he?
I don't know.
Yes,
so it follows in from that one. That's the Kurt Cobain one and David Beckham, which is very good. But thank you for that, Tom. Thanks for that, Tom. Two really good ones. I've obviously just clipped the names on the other one. This one, I think, been doing the rounds as well. Les Dawson and the woman from the Stadium of Light.
More than me.
What an ugly woman she is.
I'm not sure whether this was aimed. Who was this aimed at?
Joe Walker.
It must be.
Yeah. Ringer.
Joe Walker. Yeah, very good, Joe. Joe, if you're watching, you've made it again. And then we had this one. Toon Tipster.
He looks too clever for Joe.
He looks too clever for Joe. It's a classic. And we had this one from Rocky Toon, Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was another good one, yeah. And this one from Rita, me and Gandhi, and Mitch and one of the Flintstones.
Yeah.
Very good. And this one from Sooty, Hugh Penman on the pull. You'll probably see that face tonight. This one was rather unnerving. Michael Charters, who's now out of hospital, found your lad in Turkey, Steve. Wow.
Aye. Wow.
That is separated at birth. Very good, mate. Very good. Okay, this one, Steve Hasty and Brendan Healy.
Brendan Healy, aye. That's a ringer, that like.
Aye, I knew Brendan. He was a good lad. He was really smashing bloke.
I bet your barber knew you both and all.
Did.
And now who's that?
Right, that's another one.
Who was it? I can't even remember.
Catherine Tate.
Catherine Tate, that's right.
One more. That's another one for my list, right? That's another one.
You better keep your pen and paper ready.
Aye.
This one from Joe Hopp.
Right, I know where
Steve
this is
Hasty.
coming from. Yeah, right.
Thought this when I saw this.
Joe Hobb, right?
Joe
Okay.
Hobb. Sam Triple J, Steve Hasty and China lie down.
I've already got Sam written down. I had that done before.
In anticipation. We've got that one, Steve Hasty, somebody else sent it. He's about to say breast milk was crap. That's got to be Gordon Ramsay lookalike, though, not Steve Hasty. I thought it was Steve Hasty. This one, Steve Hasty is King Louis the 11th.
14th.
14th, yes.
Louis the 14th.
At first glance, I thought this was Hastings. It's actually Hasty, says George Bell, but the guy right at the back.
Right, okay, that's another one. What's his name? Jody, right? Jody Bell.
Jody Bell, A. Bell. This one from Wayne Bennett, Friday lookalike. Sorry, Steve.
Wayne was already on the list as well.
It's an old looking Barbie, that, isn't it? This one. David Cook says, based on some of last night's lookalike, he's thought of this one. My bearded collie is Steve Hasty to give Keith a laugh.
Right, I got that one.
The bloke's put his shirt on the dog.
Just to make it look more like Steve. This one from Will Watson. This is a new guy. Is this Mr. Hasty with a young Michael Jackson?
Will Watson. Right,
okay. Batman's milkman. He goes down as.
This is getting longer.
Yes, Albert.
Albert.
Oh, Christ.
I've got no idea what. I've got no idea what that is. Late Henry Hasty and Colonel Porters. You're on the wall.
Who is that? Put the name up. I need the name. I can't see it. Oh, can I get away with that?
Dave Wild, late catching up on tonight's show.
You can't
deny that. I like that one. I like that one.
Fortune at the races.
Outstanding that.
I like that one. I was at the winning post.
Believe you me, there is better ones. This one from Tim Cairns. Steve Hasty on the Antiques Roadshow at the bottom.
I've seen that bloke. Ask it, I'm sure. There was a few look like him.
Steve Hasty getting his oats at the top. So we've had various Quakers. This was a great spot by Terry. He says it's mad who you spot singing in the backing band for Barry Manilow. If you just look on his right hand shoulder, there's Steve Hasty.
2022.
Terry Armstrong. That's who that is. This one from Gav. He says, been interesting hearing about Steve Hasty's farm on the BBC, the Farmers Country Showdown.
Gav, right? Aye.
This one was great as well. Albert says, Her Majesty returns to Ascot, stopping to make a brief appearance on the Three Amigos.
Albert for the 55th time.
Steve Owen, thank you for this. Emperor Palpatine and
he's a
Steve
new one.
Hasty.
That's a new name, aye. Yeah, aye.
Steve Owen. And last couple of Steve. Rocky Toon got a better one of the guy on Antiques Roadshow. And the auctioneer, that's who you were. And I thought the best one was this one, which about 5 people sent it from James. He said, look alike contestant, Steve Hasty.
Right, I'll put James's name down. He'll get the blame anyway. So
yeah, there's about 4 people sent that in, Steve. I just didn't want to put it up 4 times.
This is for the instructions, by the way.
For the injunction.
Yes.
All right. The top three. The top three are in this order: Colin Wilson, Trent Boult, and Matty Target. That's number 3.
Yeah.
I like that one.
Very good.
Number 2.
Yes, he's walked this man.
Dennis Nielsen versus Robert Peston.
That's good as well.
Yes, that's good. That. Yeah.
Winner, Mr. Hasty.
The winner's not Hasty. It's this one. Mo Salah and Peter Sutcliffe.
Yeah, me.
Imagine being competitive. Oh my God.
Aye, excellent. Great stuff. Keep your looking like he's coming in. You've smashed it this week with Steve Hasty, man. Because he had a week off. Because he had a week off, it's no good. We had to keep them all from coming on. So that's your tune looking like for this week.
My lawyer will be in touch.
My lawyer will be in touch just in time for this. I will stick 2 in. This one, look, I made a spelling mistake because I didn't have my glasses on, so I called him Paul Metzen instead of Paul Merson. And Fred, in the know, jumps straight in and says, Paul Merson or Metzen is a good bloke this week, apparently. Every team has idiots for fans. Obviously, none of them have the embarrassment of a Wraith. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's fair enough. I made a spelling mistake, Fred, but there was no need to be like that. And this one was back to basics. Start as we mean to go on. Steve Wraith. The rest you can read for yourself. Thank you, Jack. Didn't last long on my timeline. Off he went with a trumpety trump. Now I'm gonna finish off, lads, with some recollections from. I just want some recollections for you. Wayne Bennett sent this in as a possible suggestion, and it was, can you tell us if you had any nights on here, any story? You want a story each from each of us before we finish. So, has anybody got a particular story about being on the Tuxedo Princess, the Tuxedo Royale?
Like many people, I came very, very close to breaking my ankle on that revolving dance floor. I know that. It wasn't one of those haunts that I went to very frequently, I must admit. And I was surprised. It reminded me of the DFDS ferry when you got there, the stench of the bloody diesel fuel. But it was good nights. I remember it being hired out for the DSS staff at Long Benton one particular night. That was a good evening. And a couple of occasions on a Saturday, but it wasn't the place I frequented. I was very much more into the Mayfair, if truth be known.
I was on it like I've got a guilty play here. We went on one night with 5 lads from Durham, and a lad called Kingy went and got the drinks, and he didn't know it was one of them revolving stages. And he got you imagine a lad's got 5 pints. He's holding 2 and 2 hands, 1 up, 1 down. He's got one in the middle jammed in. He come over. He was 2 parts to the wind. He didn't realise, and he was like trying to get round us, and he stood on that dance floor, so he just got on it. And then he went past us with these 5 pints. And then we were stood. We didn't realise what was happening. We were stood there, and then he come back round. And we were trying to get the drinks up. We couldn't get them over. And in the end, we went round about 3 or 4 times. He was trying to pass them over. Well, all the drinks went all our way. But it was a cracking place. It was a bit rough. It was a bit rough.
Mitch, any from you? Mitch, any memories of the boat?
Sorry, my internet's just been a bit shaky there. Yeah, I can remember being on there. It was either in my 3rd or my 4th year when I was at dental school with a load of dental students, and there was a first-year dental student decided to jump off and swim across to the other side, and there was all hell broke loose. Police called, he got arrested at the other side of the water. And apparently when he graduated, it was still on his record, and he had to ask permission from the General Dental Council to actually graduate because they questioned his fitness to practice before he'd even started, and that's because he jumped off the bloody Tuxedo Princess and swam across the other side.
Brilliant, great stuff. I've got knocked back from there a couple of times as a student. I did manage to get on a couple of occasions. I remember the dance. I made it onto the dance floor. I mean, if you didn't go on that dance floor and not spill your drinks, then you were, clearly just not. You couldn't balance properly on it. But I did see a couple of people on there spew. Obviously, whilst the dance floor was revolving, so basically as they were going, they spewed, and it covered lots of people. I remember sitting on tables with telephones as well, a bit like Madison.
That was Tuxedo Junction. That
they had like a 1980s 90s thing, that wasn't it? Yeah. But just straight.
Tuxedo Junction was just on the corner of Market Street and John Dobson Street, and you had the telephones on each of the tables so you could talk to people on other tables. That was the first of Quadrini's places, and then he brought the boats in after that. Early 80s when when Quadrini, late 70s, early 80s when Quadrini took on the Tuxedo Junction. That was the nightclub in the town. It was the one where you had to wear a suit to get in. That's it wasn't just no trainers and nothing like that. It was
no white socks.
No white socks, nothing. I mean,
no skinheads.
Those doormen they had a job to do, Steve, as you know, and boy, to perform it.
Roger says good. He's got a good few memories. He won a bottle of cheap champagne as the highest jump one night. I'd been playing basketball a lot of the time. Tim says the dance floor had you done in. Mozza says I had a work day on the boat. I just got 10 drinks in, and there was a fire alarm, so they cleared all of our glasses away. John says me and me pals were on one night, and a load of Rajis chucked a railway sleeper on deck from the Tyne Bridge. God knows where they got it from, and it made a hell of a noise. Bloody lucky nobody got seriously hurt. T-Tank never went to the boat. He always went to the studio, the Ritz or Madison's. And Spenny Mag says he worked on the door a few times with Stozza. Keith Doug Hall got thrown off once for having tattoos before it was fashionable. So there you go. Thank you for sharing the stories. And Wayne, I hope you enjoyed that. Just time to finish with the poll. Only 154 votes, but it's enough to give us an answer. Pope, the clear winner. Who should be the first choice goalkeeper at Newcastle next season? Pope with 75% and Dubravka with 18%. I did put Darlow and Gillespie on just out of the fact that they're both still there. Darlow got 3% and Gillespie got 5%. So thank you for everybody who took the time for voting. Thanks to Ian Mearns, Steve Hasty, Keith Patterson and Mitch for joining us. Thanks to everybody in the chat, and thanks to Chris for coming on and telling us about his golf challenge. Another great show, another great night. Have a great weekend. If I don't see you up at Shearer's Bar, we will see you. Take care, guys.
All the best.
Cheers, everyone.
Cheers, lads. Take care.